Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about McMuffins and the minimum wage. Now, every couple of months or so, usually on a weekend morning, my wife will look over at me and go, "Damn, I got a craving for a McMuffin. You go get us McMuffins for breakfast." And of course, I instantly have a flashback to the PTSD-induced 2 years I spent working at McDonald's for $4.25 an hour, as I got hammered on by hordes of customers who literally hated me and my existence because I had a McDonald's shirt on, and it took more than 18 seconds for them to get their McMuffin. Now, needless to say, right after the panic attack ended, I hopped in my car and promptly drove to McDonald's to go get my wife a McMuffin because, of course, happy wife, happy life. However, let me tell you what happened once I got there. To start with, the drive-through line was all the way through the parking lot and out into the street. So me and other people were actually sitting in our cars in traffic, not moving. Like, there was traffic moving all around us. We just couldn't move because we were pushed all the way out into the street because there were about 20 cars in the drive-thru. Hey, it's cool. It's all part of the joy of going out and getting fast food drive-thru food in the mornings. Some days you get right in, some days not so much. However, this was exceptional. After about 20 minutes in the drive-thru line, I advanced far enough into the parking lot that I could sort of get a grasp on the situation. And it was worse than I thought. There were actually people pulling up to the store, getting out of their cars to go into the lobby and go order, getting to the door and going like this, and the door was locked because the lobby itself wasn't open. When I finally got to the drive-thru window and ordered, they told me to pull up to the second window because they didn't even have the extra person to take the money at the first drive-thru window. And again, I'm totally cool with this. Yes, it took like the better part of 25 minutes to get a couple of McMuffins and to get the hell out of the parking lot, but I'm okay with it. Again, once you've worked in fast food, once you've worked in customer service, most people learn to not be a dick to other people working in retail or fast food because they know and understand how bad it is because they had to deal with it. Now, as I'm leaving the parking lot, there is a local regional semi-fast food chain across the street from the McDonald's. Their parking lot was packed. There were a ton of people there, and the line was moving, and it looked like they were doing a shit ton more business than McDonald's. And of course, outside, they had a help wanted sign where they wrote proudly in large letters, "Pay starts at $15 an hour, inquire within." The McDonald's had no such sign. So why am I telling you this story about McDonald's and the place across the street and the apparent differences between the two of them? Well, it seems that there's still a national dialogue centered around people, especially poor working class people, or my favorite, unskilled laborers, refusing to go back to work because, they're just being entitled and sitting on their ass, getting unemployment checks and pandemic relief checks. And, they're just eating bonbons and watching, Dr. Phil all day, and they're not doing anything. And meanwhile, people making $80,000, $90,000 a year sitting in their nice Subaru in a McDonald's drive-thru are losing their shit because they have to wait more than 4 minutes for a McMuffin. And of course, they go online and scream, "Why won't the lazy people go back to work? It's because of the government and the pandemic and socialism." So what if I told you that none of those things are right, and there's a completely different reason why people are choosing not to go back to work at fast food, dining, and in retail? Well, wonder no longer, because I'm going to explain it to you. Here we go! Restaurant workers across North Carolina say there's no labor shortage, it's a wage shortage. Now, this article by this outlet, The Counter, went out and spoke to a whole bunch of different people in North Carolina who had previously worked or currently work in fast food, casual dining, or retail. How come they haven't gone back to work, or how come other people who used to work with them have not gone back to work? And this is a great cross-section of America because North Carolina is a right-to-work state. It is a state with a $7.25 minimum wage, and it essentially represents 2/3 of the states in the US and what the current labor markets and the current pay ranges look like. Here is what the people actually said who are no longer going back to work in fast food or casual dining. Precious Cole, a 33-year-old McDonald's worker, dropping this little nugget. Quote, if these companies want workers, they're going to have to do better. They're going to have to pay $15 an hour or more, or nobody's going to come to work. We've been at a breaking point since COVID hit, and these companies didn't do what they needed to do to protect us. I lost family members. I lost friends because of this, and companies can't even have the common decency to protect the people that work for them. Now, we have to deal with people who claim that they're vaccinated and don't have to wear a mask. Who's to say that they are actually vaccinated? So reason number one people aren't going back to work in this sort of environment is because of the increased risk. Now, of course, people complaining the loudest about this being an aberration and how people should just stop fantasizing that there's still a pandemic out there and they should just get back to work. Yeah, these are people with white-collar jobs who are now doing their office gig from home and ordering Uber Eats twice a day for their food and then being mad that it takes more than 30 minutes for it to get there because they don't want to have to drive all the way to the drive-thru and exchange money with somebody who has already touched 200 other people's hands that day. Yet, they are perfectly willing to sit on their couch and complain that other people won't go back and do the same exact thing to, help their life and help their quality of life improve. Because again, God forbid, you gotta wait 20 minutes for the McMuffin. Jamie Weaver, 41, a bartender and server. Quote, the thing about the labor shortage is that there's always been a lot of turnover in this industry, but honestly, mostly because of COVID, a lot of people have moved on. They either left because they didn't have a job for a year, or they're just tired of working in the industry. In this business, you work nights, you work weekends, you don't get holidays off. You're living paycheck to paycheck. There are no benefits. People come to work sick because if they miss a shift, they don't pay a bill. The people who think we don't want to work and are just living off a few stimulus checks are the same people who wanted to reopen everything during the pandemic and who didn't want to wear masks. We were risking our lives so people could eat out, and they still treated us like garbage and didn't tip. This has been gut-wrenching in every way possible, and the people who survived it are now getting raked over the coals because restaurants are so short-staffed. So reason number one here still prevails: safety and health. But reason number two is you, the customer. You're the reason why people don't want to go back to work. Now, not specifically you watching this video, because of course, if you're watching this video, you're probably an awesome human being and are very cool, especially to people working in retail and food service who are getting hammered on and are haggard and are exhausted. So I appreciate you if you're one of those people. However, if you're one of the other people, the ones who go to a restaurant right now and complain that the server's wearing a mask so you can't see her smile at you because you demand at least 3 smiles per meal or else you're not going to leave a tip, yeah, you assholes, you're the reason why people don't want to go back to work. They don't want to go back to work because they don't want to serve you. Ebony Warfield, 30, a chef from Winston-Salem, quote, customers wanted everything to instantly go back to normal, and for the people in the industry who stuck around, that was really hard. They felt abused. Customers maybe don't understand the unique challenges in the front of the house. People in the front of the house are working doubles, back to back because there's a shortage. They're working these long hours. They're exhausted and they're getting beat down by customers when the restaurant is short-staffed and they have double the workload. People are just burnt out. Customers who have not been in the industry don't understand what it's like to be on your 5th double shift. That is correct. The only thing they understand is that while they're working from home for the 11th straight month, getting paid the same as they used to, only now they don't have to commute or wear pants, yeah, they're really pissed off that they got to wait 20 minutes for that McMuffin. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to scream and yell about how unfair it is to them, the downtrodden American worker, in their underwear on their couch, making 75 grand a year, having fucking Zoom calls. Chrissy Faison, 37, chef and owner of a black soul food catering company, quote, "This labor shortage is complicated because it's not like people aren't going back to work. They're just maybe not going back to work in the restaurant industry. I have friends who lost their jobs in the service industry or had their hours cut way back. Now they do work that has nothing to do with food. They make good money and some even seem happier." Shocker, huh? People don't want to go back to serving you McMuffins for $7.25 an hour while you yell at them when they could even make $8 an hour or $9 an hour doing anything else that doesn't involve dealing with you. Keenan Harton, 46, former fast food worker. Quote, "I've worked in fast food since I was a teen. When COVID started, I was working at Biscuitville for $8 an hour. Then Biscuitville cut my hours back more, and I finally got cut from the job. They rehired me a few months ago and only gave me a 50-cent raise, but I quit because the working conditions were bad, and it's basically not worth it. Now I work as a handyman." That's all it took, people. A couple of months of sitting at home, watching TV, hearing news reports, contemplating what it would be like to get to do anything else other than the horrible job you've been doing on auto replay every single day for years. People get caught in a loop and then they just stop thinking about the fact that there are other jobs and other careers out there because they're running on the treadmill at top speed. Well, thanks to COVID, the treadmill stopped running that fast, and everybody got a little time to walk a little more casually, look around, and realize that literally where they were sucked worse than every other place around them, and they got a little time to look around. And you know what? People who have found other work have decided to not come back because working in retail and fast food is horrible because you have to deal with the most horrible and the most entitled people. Whoa, I don't understand why they say there's a labor shortage. I don't believe there's a shortage. I believe people are tired. I'm fed up and fired up about the way these companies treat workers. If these restaurants would actually pay us a livable wage, they wouldn't have to worry about trying to find workers. This work is hard. You work 10, 12-hour shifts. You come home and your body hurts. Maybe you have health conditions. Maybe there's family or other stuff you have to deal with when you get home, but you still have to work another job or do work on the side just to cover your bills. It's really tough out there. These companies wouldn't be able to make millions if we weren't working for them. And this brings up a larger point. And this, again, is where I'm going to take issue with the people who scream the loudest but understand the least. There is a belief out there that there is only a 1% margin in every single restaurant on the face of the planet, including the ones owned and run by corporations. And guess what? That is simply not a fact. If you remember, after the Chipotle buzz up a couple weeks ago because they said they were going to raise prices by a whopping 4%, I did a video on that, and we found out that the average corporate Chipotle store makes $2 million a year in revenue and pockets nearly 400 grand a year in profit, a 20% margin spread out over hundreds and or thousands of stores. It adds up to billions of dollars in revenue. Well, McDonald's, turns out McDonald's, even last year being a slow year for them, still did incredibly well. So well, in fact, that they generated $19.2 billion in revenue with a net income of just south of $5 billion. Roughly 24% profit margin, which means they could have offered every single employee in every single store $15 an hour and still made somewhere between $3 to $4 billion in revenue without raising a price 1 cent. So no, McDonald's is not going to choose to only make $5 billion in profit instead of $6 billion in profit just to avoid all of this, because at the end of the day, their top-line executives' only responsibility is a fiduciary one to their shareholders to maximize stock revenue. That's it. That is their only concern, because if shareholders make large quarterly dividends well then, they sell more shares of stocks, the value of the stock goes up, the CEO gets tens of millions of dollars in incentive bonuses, and then of course the corporation takes that money, buys back more of their own stock, and drives the price up even higher. So the people in the suits keep making more and more money. The customers at the register keep spending more and more money, and the people on the bottom, well, they keep making the same. And it looks like now that they've had a moment to think and consider about just what they are worth and how horrible their job is, they're deciding not again. So it looks like somebody is going to have to give in this game of chicken, because if they don't, well, the Barbers and the Chucks and the Kens and the Karens and the Chads of the world are just going to have to keep waiting 20 minutes to get their goddamned McMuffin. Stay strong, workers. You're worth a hell of a lot more. Until next time, my name is James. I'm from the internet, and I am out. Peace.